Good morning. Welcome to the flip side. This is Eric Jorgensen with Main Street Financial. Today, as my guest, I have Derek Cervoni. He's a disability attorney with Cervoni Law in Virginia. Good morning, Derek.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Could you tell us a little bit about you and your practice? And many people may never have heard of a disability attorney and just what you do.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me on this morning. So what we do is the firm Cervoni Disability Law. We're located in Arlington, Virginia, but it's pretty much a nationwide practice. What we do is help folks navigate the Social Security, disability, and SSI application process. I've been doing it for 20 years now, and what we try to do is make the process as easy as possible by handling all aspects of the application process with Social Security. And what that means is we do a lot of the intake with folks either in person or over the phone, take a lot of their information down in terms of their treating doctors, what their physical or mental impairment is. And then we start the application from the ground level. We do the initial claim, initial application, take it all the way through to the hearing stage with the administrative law judge. And what we try to do is insulate people from the application online process by handling all aspects, filing the claim, keeping track of the appeals, and that way we can try to help folks get better with their doctors, and they can focus on their condition more than the application process itself. An important factor that I like to point out is the fee arrangement, which most people ask about, is contingency fee. So we only receive a fee if we win the claim. If we go through the process and cannot get them approved for Social Security, disability, or SSI benefits, then we do not receive a fee. And that's pretty much what we try to do to make their lives better.
And from my own experience with Social Security, this whole process can take a while, right? And Social Security may or may not be forthcoming about information. Is there something, do you help keep people informed about what the status is, where they're at? So if it's been 3-4 months or?
Right, that's a good question. So yes, it is a long process. The initial claim will probably take about 4 or 5 months for a decision. Then what's called the reconsideration, which is another online appeal, can take another 4 months, 3-4 months. And if that's denied, then you have to go through the third stage, which is a request for hearing with an administrative law judge. And we file that appeal, and that takes a number of months, 15, 18 months sometimes to get a hearing date in the DC metro area, Virginia, Maryland, DC. So in the meantime, we try to work with the client's doctors and update the file as often as possible to try to expedite the process and get someone to look at the claim in advance. And customer service is big in our office. What we try to do is be in touch with people either over the phone or through email regularly, every 30 days or so. Social Security doesn't move that quickly, so 30 days is pretty much an average of when we reach out to folks to let them know what's happening. That way they can feel part of the process, but they don't have to feel that they're directly having to deal with Social Security. We take on that responsibility so that again, so that we can insulate people as much as possible and have them concentrate on their health conditions.
Yeah, and I do something similar with the DAV, and I can tell you from personal experience, just letting somebody else interact with the bureaucracy, and it takes that pressure off, and it's really liberating knowing that they're going to keep me informed. I'm still in the loop. I just don't have to dwell on it, and if I need to give information, they'll ask me for it.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. And I'm happy to hear that you feel that way, because I think customer service is key in our industry, simply because people want to know what's happening. They want to know how they can help themselves and how they can help our office move the case as quickly as possible. I always tell folks, anytime you go to the doctor, make sure you let me know when and where you're going. And then if you can obtain a copy of the office note sooner, great. If not, we'll reach out to the doctor and try to get that updated information. That way we can get it into Social Security on your behalf as our client and get someone to look at the case. We work regularly with the disability offices in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and they know our office well, so that they know we're going to be reaching out and contacting them and trying to move the case and make their job easier by providing the updates that Social Security needs so that they can make the decision quicker. It's the cases that don't receive any attention on an examiner's desk that don't go through the process as quickly. So our experience is that if we can get information in front of the disability examiner and the reports that they want, then that case will be touched more often and looked at sooner.
Awesome. And you had mentioned in the beginning that you help people with SSI and Social Security disability. Can you go a little more into the differences and when one would apply for SSI versus SSDI or?
Sure, I'm happy to. Yeah, so SSI, Supplemental Security Income, is a needs-based program. The disability determination is the same in the two, Social Security disability and SSI. You have to have a diagnosis or illness that takes you out of work or is expected to keep you out of work for at least 12 months or result in death. That's how the regulations read. So Supplemental Security Income, SSI, it's resource-based. So as an individual, you have to have less than $2,000 in your name in order to be eligible to apply. And the monthly check is approximately $733 in 2016. There'll be a small COLA in 2017, up to $735 a month.
Really small.
Yeah, it's been $733 for many years, and it's finally getting a small bump, but it certainly is incremental. And that's, so again, resource-based, so that means any income that you have or any resources that you might have, savings accounts, retirement plans, anything essentially that can be converted into cash will be used to determine whether you're eligible for the SSI part of it before they even get to the medical determination in your case. Also, if you live at home with a parent, if you're a child and you're under 18 and you're living at home, then the parent's income will be deemed to you and treated as if it's the child's income. So a lot of children under 18 are not eligible because of the parent's income. If you're over 18, then in-kind support from the parent, room and board, can also be held against you as a now new adult, 18 or over, and that income or support that you get will be taken into consideration as to whether or not you're eligible to receive SSI payments. Now, for Social Security disability, that is the same disability evaluation. You have to have a diagnosis, a mental or physical illness expected to keep you out of work 12 months or more, or result in death again. And that is not resource-based. So if you have a savings account or a retirement account, that will not be held against you. You're eligible for SSDI or Social Security disability benefits because you paid into the system and earned credits, and essentially earned by paying your Social Security FICA taxes. You've earned enough credits to qualify and receive payment. Now that is a graduated dollar amount. Essentially, you're going to receive, based upon how high your earned income was and your taxes paid, you can earn, for example, $800 a month or $1,800 a month, depending upon what your prior salary was like. And again, that's for folks who've paid into the system and earned credits, 18 or over. Normally, as an adult, you will have paid into the system and earned those credits to make you eligible. And then if you have earned enough credits, then they make the medical determination. Again, sometimes folks who have a sporadic work history because of an illness may not have earned enough credits, so they'll make that determination first before they get to your medical condition. And that's part of our intake process. We do a lot of screenings with folks, and all of the initial intakes at our office and initial intakes are there's no fees involved because we do a lot of investigative work to see whether or not you're eligible for just SSI or just Social Security disability or possibly both during the same time period.
So how would you be eligible for both during the same time period?
Sure. So when you file an application for SSI benefits, they go from the application date in terms of what they're going to pay money, dollar benefits from. So SSI application will be paid on a forward basis. So Security disability, there's usually an onset date of disability where you've come out of work and stopped working, and Social Security usually chooses that date So if you're out of work for a time period, so let's say you're out of work for 12 months and then you apply, SSI would go from the application date forward. Social Security disability would look back to the time that you stopped working and pay you retroactively for that time, since the time that you last worked. However, there's a built-in 5-month waiting period before they pay any Social Security disability benefits. So sometimes when you apply, if your application date and your disability date are the same, then the first 5 months that you're out of work, you don't receive Social Security disability, but SSI starts from that application, so it may pay for the 5 months where Social Security disability does not because of that waiting period that's involved. So depending upon the situation, we sometimes apply for both so folks can get that, make up that 5-month period, at least in the SSI part of the application process.
So if I understand it correctly, let me give an example just to, and then you can tell me if I'm on track or not.
Sure.
Let's say you're working in your mid 40s, so you're nowhere near retirement age, but you have a stroke, and that stroke takes you out of commission on December 14th.
Okay.
After the initial hospital stay, the doctors are telling you you're probably not going to be able to work for a while, at least 12 months to a year and a half because of therapy. So you file a claim on December 21st. Because of that 5-month waiting period, you may be eligible to receive SSI from December 21st for 5 months, and then SSDI would come in to pay back. Is that correct? Or
so, yeah, a more definitive example would be, let's say the stroke took you out of work in June of 2016, just this past June, and you applied in July 2016 for Social Security disability and SSI. And what would happen, let's say they approve the case now in December. So you wouldn't receive any Social Security disability because there's a 5-month waiting period. So from July to December, they won't pay any back pay from Social Security disability benefits. But if you applied in July under both SSI and Social Security disability, you would get 5 months of SSI because it'll go from July through December. So then in January of 2017, in that example, you'd be eligible for both Social Security disability and SSI. So disability would start in January 2017 based on those dates in that example. So there's a 5-month waiting period before they pay any disability benefits, but that waiting period doesn't apply to the SSI. So that's why we try to apply for both if someone hasn't been out of work for 12 months yet or not.
Awesome, thank you. That helps a lot.
Sure. Good, you're welcome.
Another example, so let's use my situation as kind of a guide as well. So I have a son, he's 17, he'll be 18 next September, in September of 2017.
Okay.
He has, the diagnosis of autism, which under Social Security is one of the approved disabilities. And, his disability is significant. So I'm fairly confident he'll be eligible for SSI. When should I be looking at applying to get him SSI? I mean, you mentioned under the age of 18, he's on my earnings. So
right.
do I wait till his 18th birthday or?
Yeah, what we advise is, you can apply a little bit early before 18. However, the customary practice in our office is to apply maybe right after the 18th birthday to ensure that he's a legal adult and of majority age at that point. That being said, I do advise that you get all the paperwork together ahead of time, any IEPs or anything that might be particular to your case, any medical evidence, so that your file and your medical evidence is ready to go, so that when you file, and that's what we try to do, we try to front load the application with as much medical evidence as possible, be it an SSI case or Social Security disability case, to try to give people the best chance the first go around. And that touches on a subject that I should mention at this juncture is people are denied at the initial claim level at a pretty high rate, about 75–80% of the time. And that continues into the reconsideration level, step 2 in the process. However, when you get to the third stage, the hearing level, your odds do improve in front of the administrative law judge to about 52–53% nationwide. Our office does closer to 80–85% approval rate. simply because we do work with you consistently and with your treating doctors the entire time to supplement the file and build up the medical file with questionnaires that are tailored to a particular diagnosis or condition. So going back to your example with regard to your son, I'd say we would contact your doctors ahead of time, get questionnaires or narrative statements ready to go up front so that when he does turn 18, you can front load the application and supply Social Security with as much medical and supporting documentation as possible to give you the best chance the first go around.
So sometime early next year, start reaching out to the doctors. If his birthday is in like September, start reaching out and by March time frame.
I was going to say even 3 months ahead of time, June would be fine. If you have a good rapport and relationship with the treating doctor, then I would say around 3 months out, you can get them at. That way, it's current as current as possible, and then you get all that information together and make sure it's ready to go to send in with the application. And that's what we do. We work with the doctors. We get all the documents that you may have as a parent from schools and schooling and other evaluations that have been done, and then we try to make sure all that goes in right up front.
Okay. And then on a little bit more morbid, when I pass away, does my son become eligible for Social Security on my behalf, or does he maintain his SSI?
Sure. So that's a good question. There's a side type of benefit basically that's related to Social Security disability benefits. Adult disabled child benefits is what it's termed. Basically, the rules there are, if you have, let's say your son is on SSI and then you pass away and he's now 28 years old and he's receiving SSI benefits, and we were able to, the hitch there, or the important factor there with adult disabled child benefits is you have to have had a disability that's been in place and established before age 22.
Okay.
So we would have had to establish that that he was disabled before age 22. So if at age 18 or 19 he was found disabled for SSI and you pass away 10 years later and he is 28 years old, then yes, you could claim under your Social Security payment, under your earnings history. And the general rule there is you'd be entitled to half of whatever you would have been entitled to. So if it was more than $733 or $735.27, then that would probably be an avenue to pursue. Also, he would get Medicare coverage if that was an issue. So that's something we always look at and take into consideration. So adult disabled child benefits, the older parent would have to either pass away, be on retirement themselves, or be on Social Security disability benefits themselves, not SSI, but Social Security disability based on their own earnings history, and then the adult disabled child could claim under that parent.
So when I file for retirement, if I decide to wait till age 70 and I file for my retirement benefits, at that time I could go back and apply under the adult disabled, provided he was approved for SSI before the age of 22.
Right. So long as it's been established that he's disabled before the age of 22, then yes, when you file and you receive benefits, then he can receive up to basically a half of what you would be able to receive. An important factor there, people always ask me, does that mean I get less, or that I don't receive mine as the parent or as the older parent? No, it has nothing to do with it. You continue to receive yours, and then he just would receive about half of what you would receive. There is a family maximum that Social Security looks at. So if there's more than one child claiming, or more than one person on their earnings history claiming, then they do take into consideration a family maximum, and that's individually determined for everybody's particular situation. But Social Security can make you aware of that.
Very cool. No, that's helpful. And I typically, recommend to my clients, generally I'd like them to wait till age 70 anyway. But if you have a child with a disability, this is even more reason to wait, because now you're giving them potentially a bigger chunk of money when you pass away, even if you don't have life insurance.
Right.
And the age, I want to go back on the age, because
Sure.
There's so many different ages people have to be aware of right now, right? I mean, you can stay on a parent's insurance until 26.
Right.
You can't file for SSI, generally speaking, until you're 18 because of your parents' income. The ABLE accounts, you have to have a diagnosis before the age of 26. But to be eligible for SS, for the adult disabled, you have to have the disability identified before the age of 22.
Right.
So there's a lot of reasons that I can think of to really push, even if your child's in a certificate program and not going to get out of school until 21, 22 years old, to really start pushing to get that diagnosis and that recognition by Social Security at the age of 18.
I would agree. And again, that's why we try to work and determine what evidence is out there. Sometimes earlier evidence that let's say at the age of 14, there was an IEP in place and that type of thing. Older documentation that folks don't always consider. We try to make sure we get everything that child has had in terms of treatment to try to then build up and show Social Security that there's sufficient evidence to support a disability before the age of 22, because of the planning purposes that you just mentioned, which is, and we have a lot of parents call and say, I'm concerned about what I'm going to do for my child in the future in the event that I become disabled or pass and can't support them. What are my options? On occasion, we'll get someone who, we had, as a perfect example, a parent, a mom who was 80 years old and the son was 60 and had severe bipolar disorder. And we were going to try to allege adult disabled child benefits. However, they had never applied, and now the adult child was 60. So in order to reach back and go that far back to before age 22 had proved too difficult because of the archived records and whether or not there was available evidence. So to go to your point, to get the information in and together, and again, to my point, as much as you can ahead of time, to get the comprehensive evidence all together and organized and ready to go, and to try to file the claim and approve before the age of 22 is certainly proper planning.
And speaking as a parent, when you start coming up to that age 20, 21, 22, and you're transitioning out of high school, it's like you're driving towards a cliff. You have so much you're trying to prepare for. That is not the time, personal opinion, to be trying to think of Social Security.
Right.
And in all fairness, the schools do the best they can to prepare you for the transition, but they're not worried, and they shouldn't be, about the Social Security aspect. They're worried about making sure the child has a job, knows the life skills, and maybe help you find residential. So don't necessarily, I wouldn't rely on the school, and this isn't a dig on them, but I wouldn't rely on the school to say, have you done your Social Security yet? This is really something that I feel like parents need to keep front of mind and just really work on. So,
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And so now I'm going to digress a little bit from the children with disabilities into another avenue that's really a big passion of mine. And it's because I saw an article you had wrote, and I never even considered it. And that's the ability to collect Social Security if you're receiving VA disability.
Right.
I thought it was an automatic elimination, but the article you wrote indicated otherwise. Would you mind, just if you don't mind, explaining a little bit more?
Absolutely, yes. No, that's a good transition. So that's correct. There are certain, as we talked about, the differences between SSI and Social Security disability. With Social Security disability, you can receive VA disability benefits in full. So there's no offset because those two benefits are separate, and you can receive them alongside each other and simultaneously without a dollar for dollar offset. Unlike workers' compensation and Social Security disability, those would offset each other dollar for dollar, and then you would receive the higher amount between the two when they cover the same time period. So as you correctly pointed out, with the VA disability benefits, you can receive VA disability and you can receive Social Security disability at the same time. The evaluation processes are different. However, the VA records and the finding of disability and 100% basically total and permanent is very persuasive for Social Security's purposes. And I do want to point out, with regard to the Wounded Warriors program, if you do have 100% total and permanent compensation rate, then they will expedite the processing of the Social Security disability claim, which is fantastic because, as I pointed out at the start of this talk, the delays are significant in terms of getting approval of benefits, and the odds are certainly not that favorable at the earlier determination levels. So I would say that when we work with folks who have VA benefits, we, again, get records in ahead of time, and we try to get all the rating materials in, the DD-214 and everything else, all the documents that Social Security needs. Because what happens is if you send in 3/4 of an application, this just goes across the board, the turnaround isn't immediate. You may wait 6-8 weeks for them to say, oh, by the way, we need your W-2 form for last year. And essentially nothing's been done on your case. So given that education experience over the last 20 years, we get all that information in ahead of time. So yes, with regard to veterans, certainly it's a strong consideration, and that's why I wrote the post and the social media and blog posts on our site that you can, and I wanted to make sure veterans were aware that they shouldn't be waiting to apply for Social Security disability. You should apply as soon as you can, as soon as you come out of work, or as soon as you become disabled or unable to return to work. And that goes to another just quick transition point. The Social Security Administration under Social Security Disability, SSDI, will only pay 1 year back from the application date. So if you've been out of work for 4 years and then you apply for Social Security Disability, Social Security is only going to pay back pay for 1 year, 12 months back from the time that you apply. So we encourage people not to wait because you're losing out on freezing your benefits and getting your claim approved. There's no need to wait 12 months to apply. You can apply as soon as you come out of work. You just have to have a diagnosis or condition that's expected to last 12 months. And that's part of our intake process. We look at the diagnosis, determine whether it's something that will be expected to last a 12-month period. And that goes to the veterans information, which is important because, again, as you can probably attest, there's certainly delays in terms of getting those claims approved. And usually they've met the 1 year mark when folks come to me. They've already been out of work or service for a year, and there's been sufficient evidence. So we try to apply as soon as possible. And that's part of our intake process, again, is determining where people are in terms of the timeline and where they should be in terms of the application process.
And I'm going to use that as an opportunity to give a shameless plug to the veteran service organizations.
Okay.
The three I'm most familiar with, there's other ones out there and you can find them on the VA website, but the three I'm most familiar with are the Disabled American Veterans, which is DAV, Veterans of Foreign War, VFW, and the American Legion. All three of those have chapter service officers that can help the veterans prepare their claims. Even if there's already an existing claim, they can go, but you feel that you should be entitled to additional benefit, or maybe the circumstances have changed and you may now be eligible for a higher rating. They can help you prepare the claim. And an important thing to do with the VA that you can't do with Social Security is you can submit paperwork saying you intend to file. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's an intent to file.
Right.
And that will hold you up to a year, and without even filing the paperwork, it'll hold your spot. So then if you file an intent to file in June and then you file the paperwork in December, the VA will pay you back to June.
Like the protective filing date type of thing.
Exactly,
Sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
And all the chapter service officers, they should be preparing those claims for free. That is not a service that you should be charged for. And you'll be giving the DAV or whichever organization you're working with a limited power of attorney to speak on your behalf, much like you do with Social Security.
Right.
So it's, again, somebody else working for you on your behalf, keeping you in the loop, and then much like you do, reviewing all the documentation, make sure that you're submitting as full and informed claim as possible. So to your point, when the VA or Social Security gets a claim, they don't have to reach out for information. It should all be there. And
Right.
you have a second set of eyes on it who's not emotionally involved. Because let's face it, when we get emotionally involved, we can overlook things in our passion.
Exactly right, yes.
And then the claim tends to move faster. My VA claim, I had a service organization help me, and it took me 6 months to get my VA claim filed. which is, speed of light. I mean, it may not feel like it, but it is. It's really, really fast.
That's very quick. Yes. That's being organized, like you say, getting all the information in ahead of time and making sure all the, the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, and that way your claim gets picked up sooner and looked at sooner.
And having somebody to talk you off the ledge when you're so impatient or you're wondering why it's taking so long, you just want to pick up the phone and blow somebody up, to call somebody and just get talked down. Hey, this is part of the process. It takes a little while.
Exactly. That's what we do here too. We talk with folks every day. There's somebody that we're talking with, a client, to make sure that they understand that it's nothing they've done. It's not it's not their fault that it's being delayed. It's basically, we put together a nice, strong, comprehensive claim, and we're moving through the queue, and we're making sure that that case gets picked up more often than not, simply by submitting the updates. And we work together. And like we talked at the outset today, folks like to be involved, and to a point, they like us to run with it, but they like to make sure that they're staying in touch and they're being advised and that they have positive input also. And we appreciate that, because that helps us be personally involved. So when someone calls in and says, hey, I saw Dr. Smith, I know who they're talking about and what that doctor's office is doing for them. That way we're all on the same page, and we can continue to do our best for the client.
Awesome. I have one last thing I want to touch on with regards to Social Security, and it's representative payees.
Right.
Is it always required? Can you just explain a little bit about what that is and where it's appropriate?
Sure. So it's not always required, and it's at the first two levels, initial claim level and reconsideration level. If someone is approved and it's recommended by, let's say there's a doctor's report, sometimes Social Security will send a client to an independent consultative exam, which is one of the government doctors that Social Security pays for the client to go to for additional information. And that's a case-by-case determination that Social Security makes. The representative payee could be imposed at that point if the doctor indicates in there, let's say it's a psychiatric claim for bipolar disorder, and they say, this person's not going to be able to manage their own funds. Then Social Security in the decision will have the client, the beneficiary who's receiving the Social Security payments, disability or SSI, bring down a representative payee, someone to manage their funds for them. Now, it's not the same thing as a guardianship, because a guardianship is more of a comprehensive management of the entire affairs, housing, room and board, whatever it might be, any of their doctor appointments, anything that needs managing in their life, their lifestyle, their existence, basically. This is only for the representative payee is only for SSI or Social Security disability benefits, and a power of attorney can't manage the SSI or SSDI payments the same way that they would still need to apply to be a representative payee in order to manage those federal funds. So it's not in every case. At the initial two levels, the local office makes the determination, and a lot of times we help folks who say, hey, I got a letter in the mail, it says I need to come down with a representative payee. What kind of documentation do I need to bring? Sometimes folks can bring down their own checkbook showing they're capable of balancing their own benefits, and then the representative payee will not be required. Other times they need to bring down a trusted family member or someone who's filled out the application paperwork who they can trust to manage their payments. At the hearing stage, the third level with the administrative law judge, the judge themselves will indicate in the decision whether or not a representative payee should be considered. At that point, same type of evaluation process goes on at the local office, and our client would have to go down and determine, and show whether or not they can manage their own funds, again, by showing that bills come to them in their own name, that they're capable of balancing a checkbook or managing accounts that they already have. And then it's a case-by-case determination at Social Security, and they decide to whether or not they can manage those funds and impose that limitation on them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything you feel like I should have asked, or something you get asked quite frequently that I didn't cover, or any last thoughts?
That's a good idea. Yeah, in terms of what documentation people need, people always say, what is it that I actually need? to file the claim. What you really need up front is birth certificate, like you're talking about your son next fall. Make sure you have a birth certificate, a original or certified copy. It can't be a photocopy. Should be original if you can get one from DHS, and the wherever you're, in the city and state you're born in. Have a bank account set up if you're receiving funds on your own for Social Security Disability or SSI. They'll want to do direct deposit, so set up a checking account. Also, any medical reports that you have, we've touched on this today, but even if medical and supporting documents, be they educational, if it's an SSI claim, you're trying to establish disability before age 22, they can go and any type of reports or evaluations that demonstrate incapacity or disability. And pay stubs, sometimes Social Security will want to see the pay stubs for the last tax year on top of the W-2 to determine if someone left work the middle of the year and the earnings history shows more than half of the pay. If you made $30,000 one year in 2014 and you left June 2015 and you still have $28,000, they'll want to see pay stubs because it's so close to the prior year's salary. They'll want to see if you left 6 months where the additional income came from. Again, having those type of documents up front, everything ahead of time really helps us help you as the client. Otherwise, one other thing about our office, again, consultations are free. We phone calls, people call in all day long, and we go over their facts to let them know with an honest opinion whether or not they fit the SSI or Social Security disability requirements, or whether they should wait longer, or whether they don't because of credit issues, they haven't paid into the system long enough, whatever it might be. And again, we work on contingency fee. So as I mentioned, we put a lot of time in initial claim, reconsideration, sometimes wait 15 months to get a hearing date. And if we go through all of that and can't win the case for a client, we don't receive any payment. They don't owe us a fee, and we have to part ways. So it's really client-friendly practice, and we try to do our best for folks who come our way.
And even when they owe you a fee, are they writing you a check, or does it come out of what you get from Social Security?
And we're bound by the fee agreement process that Social Security sets up. It's 25% of the back pay back to the time that Social Security finds the client disabled, capped at $6,000. So the maximum fee at this point in 2016 is $6,000. They do adjust it on occasion. So that basically means 25% capped at $6,000. And again, contingency fee. So only if we win the claim do we receive any payment at all. And
you could be putting in, anywhere between 8 months to 2 years or more of time and effort.
That's right. Yeah, up front to and again, that's why we try to give people an honest intake up front, because I don't want to waste their time and make any promises that we can't keep, and we don't want people to anticipate receiving benefits in the future if we don't think it's a viable claim.
So if people want to find you, the website's the best source, and that's Cervoni Disability.
Cervoni Disability Law. Yep, it's CervoniDisabilityLaw.com, and our contact information's on there. Our office is situated in Arlington, right off of 66 near East Falls Church Metro, and we do travel nationwide, and primarily in terms of clients, they either call us on the phone or meet us here at the office, and we're open to speaking to anyone who might need some help.
And from my personal experience, I know the people I've referred to you have raved about you, about how quickly you respond, and whether and there have been cases where you've had to tell them you just couldn't help. But I mean, in a lot of ways, that's helpful too, because you're not stringing them along. You're just being very honest and saying, no, you don't have a case, or
it's not quite ripe. It's not ready yet. That's correct. Yeah. And that way people can, if they have a number of check boxes, they're trying to determine what kind of benefits are out there for me. What am I eligible for? Now they have some satisfaction on that front, that at least they pursued this avenue to the best of their ability, and they got an honest upfront discussion about it.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time today. On the show, it should be labeled with the name of your law firm and your name. So when it goes up, if people are interested, that information should be there, and I'll make sure if it's not, I'll make sure I add it. But again, thank you for your time today, Derek, and to all of you out there, I'm a big fan of using professionals because it's one less thing I have to worry about. I will, in full honesty, contract as much out as possible.
Yeah, I agree. It really does help people specialize in things, and we focus on Social Security disability. It's a small niche practice, but I agree that there are, and with regard to Main Street and you, Eric, you guys do a great job in terms of explaining and getting resource information out there. So I appreciate your time today too and having me on the show.
Awesome. Have a great holiday.
You too. Thanks.